Hi and welcome everyone. So in today's video, we will learn how to create a master material in Unreal Engine with 4 layers of complexity. So to start, we will create a new folder here. So we will keep our work organized and we will name it materials. Okay. So inside this folder, I will create a material. So right click and create material, or you can go here and you can create a material. And here I will name it M master. So I will double click on this master material and I will bring it to the main menu here, to the main window, sorry. So here we have the material editor, and we will start creating our first layer. So we will set up a generic master material that will serve us most of cases. So we will start by bringing some information to plug in here. And this information is the texture maps. These are my maps here. So we have color, we have displacement, we have normal, and we have ORM. So we will talk about this a little bit later. And we can drag and drop them in the editor in here, and Unreal will import them. So for some maps, the engine is very smart to detect them and already set the correct profile, like the normal, like the color also. But for some others, so we need some just little manual adjustment to fix the color space of the map itself. So for anything black and white, like opacity, like height maps, and like this ORM, which is occlusion, roughness, and metallic, we need to check to uncheck the sRGB color, because we are dealing with black and white data, so we don't need sRGB checked, and this could create problems and could make our results look inaccurate. Okay, so you see, when I uncheck sRGB, now we are seeing the correct values of black and white. And we will do the same for this map also. So we will uncheck sRGB. Okay. So now we will start creating our first layer of our master material. So the first layer is these maps only. So we will connect these maps. So we will leave the displacement for now, and we will later see how to add it. So we will add the normal, and we will add the occlusion, roughness, and metallic. So we will connect the color to the base color, and for occlusion, roughness, and metallic, so this is a packed map. So usually we will have these maps individual, but for games, this is a very nice and very powerful optimization technique to reduce the number of maps. So instead of having individual 3 maps for each input, so like metallic, roughness, and ambient occlusion, we packed these inside the channels, the RGB channels of one single image, since these are black and white. Okay, so the R will go to the ambient occlusion, the G will go to the roughness, and the B will go to the metallic. And this way we are connecting our map correctly. And of course, this is a normal map, so the output of the RGB will be connected to the normal. Okay, so congratulations. We now finished our first layer of our material. Is the material ready now? You can stop here and go with it. But the purpose of this video is how to create more detailed and how to have more control over these maps. So let's say if we want to control, for example, the color. So we can start by adding some nodes here to control the behavior of the color before it gets displayed in the output for the base color. So we will start by controlling things like brightness. So what if I want to control the brightness of this map? So That's very easy. We can add a scalar parameter, and we can name this scalar parameter diffuse or color brightness, diffuse brightness. Okay. And we will set the value to 1, which is the default brightness. And now we can tell this value to be functional by adding a multiply node in between. So the color map will go into A, and this value will go into B, and everything will be connected here. So nothing changed, but for example, if I go here and do 2, you notice that the diffuse color is now brighter, and the same if I reduce it, so it will be darker. Okay, so that's the first node. Now we can add more controls. So let's add, for example, a contrast. And here we will need a power node. So the power node, right click and hit the power node. So type power, and we will connect the multiply in the base, and in the exponent we will use another scalar parameter, and we will name this diffuse contrast. Okay, so that's perfect, and we now connect it here, and similar to the brightness, so we will leave it to 1 to have the default aspect. So by default it will be unchanged, and we will change it as we need. Okay, so now what if we want to add a saturation control? So in Unreal there is no saturation nodes, there is desaturation. So we will use this node and we will flip its value to get the saturation. So I will connect it here, and here in the fraction I will add a scalar parameter as usual, but also I will add something between them to flip the information from here. So diffuse saturation, and this also will be 1. Okay, and now to introduce to add the negative value here, we will add a 1 minus node. So this will flip the information from here to a negative 1. So this will look like a -1 instead of typing -1. This is less confusing and more clear. So if we want to increase the saturation, we can increase it like this, and if we want to decrease it, we can decrease it. Okay, so now our material here is our diffuse has some controls, and we can add more. So for example, if we want to add diffuse tint, so we can use a constant 3 vector, and here we can change the color to white and convert this to a parameter, and let's name it diffuse tint. Okay, so you can see that easily our material graph started to get a little bit dense, and we will see how to label these and organize them in a nice way. So here we will add a multiply node, and we will connect everything into the multiply. Okay, and I can select all of these and hit C to add a comment, and these will be our diffuse controls. Okay, so now if I hit apply, and if I go to the level, so we can save everything, save all. So remember always to save, and I will create a plane. So let's make it 2 meters by 2 meters. So the default unit is centimeter here. Okay. That's too big. Okay. And let's make it in the center. And in our materials here, I will create a material instance out of this one, and I will assign the material instance to this plane. So now you can see that I have the color information here, and if I double click on this material instance, I can see the parameters that I set in the master material. They are now in a form of slides that we can input numbers in. So if we want to increase the brightness, if we want to increase the contrast, and if we want to increase the saturation or decrease it, and also we can add a color tint to our diffuse map. But you can notice something here. So the naming is global scalar parameter values, global scale parameter values here, which is not helpful, especially when we will have a lot of settings and we want to group them nicely. So to do that, we will select all the nodes that we want to group, so like these, and we will add them to a group here, and the group will be diffuse controls. So you can select individual ones like this one and set the order, so which one appear first. So if you want the brightness to appear on the top, you can type 1, 2, etc., 3, etc. Okay. And diffuse tint also could be displayed as fourth option. So if I hit apply now, and I will go back to my material instance, now I have diffuse controls and I have them labeled correctly and easier to figure out and understand. Okay, so that's for the this part. And also, what if I want to change these input maps? What if I want to use other textures? So we can also convert these to parameters and group them also. So this will be our diffuse map, and I will create a specific group for the maps, which is texture maps, and the diffuse will appear on top one. So we will add the displacement later, and this one convert to parameter, and this will be ORM, occlusion roughness metallic map, and it will be in the same group as the others. So texture maps, and it will have number 2, and this one also convert to parameter, and this will be our normal map. Okay, so and this one will be also in texture maps, and it will have number 3. Okay, so let's now move to control the other maps. So now we finished the diffuse, but what if we want to control other maps? So this is very easy. We will do the same here. So for example, if we have the so we said that the R is the occlusion, the G is the roughness, and the B is the metallic. So we will add some controls for the roughness. So we will start by adding the brightness as usual. So we can copy this one, hit Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and replace the name, or we can create a new one. So you are free to do what you want. And the good thing about this, that this material could be migrated to other projects and you don't need to recreate it from scratch. So I will hit M to create a multiply node, and I will connect these like that. Of course, I will disconnect the roughness from here because I will connect it later. And you can see that the connection is going in this direction like that. So it's a little bit confusing. What you can do is add some points, double click in any place, and you can rearrange your points. So to be more organized. Okay. So later we will have the metallic controls out from here. So this will be the metallic controls. So we can have them going in this direction. and we can have these going here. Okay. Okay. So also, if we want the contrast, so we can use the power nodes also, copy paste, and this one will be roughness, contrast. Okay. And same thing. So here we can connect everything to the roughness, and we can hit C to group all of these together, and these will be our roughness controls. Okay, so you can give it another color, for example, and you can move it down, add another point here. Okay, and these, if I leave them like this, they will be grouped under the diffuse controls. So we want them to be under roughness controls, not diffuse, and I will hit apply. And now if I go to my material instance, I can have the roughness controls and the texture maps appearing here. So if I want to decrease the roughness brightness, or to increase it, or to add more contrast to make it more reflective or less, so I can use these. Okay, so now we will do the same for the metallic. So you can see that we can reuse these nodes to accelerate our material creation process. Okay, and I can select both of them, and I can add them under the metallic controls group. So we are now only left with the normal map, and for this one it's very easy. So we can add some normal controls to control the intensity of our normal. So the map that we will use, the node that we will use is called flatten normal, and here I can connect the map to the normal, and I can connect this to here, and like we did with the contrast here, so with the saturation, we will flip the input value to get the correct one, because Unreal is using DirectX, and the map from DirectX is the opposite of OpenGL. So I will hit my one minus, and here I will do normal scalar parameter, normal intensity, and I will set the value to 1 by default, and I will group everything under normal controls. Okay, and this normal intensity node should be added into normal controls. Okay, so congratulations. Now we finished the second complexity level of our material. Now our material has all the basic controls for color and other maps, so to control the behavior of our material. So I will save everything. Okay, and I will save this map. So let's name it test level. Okay, and now we will move to the third level of complexity, and this one we will introduce tiling and rotation. So what if I want these to be tileable and also to have control over the rotation of the UVs and the offset also? So this is very easy. We can go to this area, for example, and we can add a texture coordinate. And from this texture coordinate, we can output a multiply node. Okay. And this multiply node, the first control we will add to it is our tiling control. So how much the texture is tiling, texture, tiling. And we will set the default value to 1. Okay, and we will connect it here. And now I will add an add node. So I will add to this an add node, and we will add the controls for the offset. So what if I want to move my texture on the U or V directions, so horizontally or vertical, so we can add an append vector node, and we can add two scalar parameters. So we'll add this one and we will duplicate it, Control C, Control V, and this one will be called offset U and offset V. Okay, and the default value also should be 1, so there is no offset by default, and we can control the offset manually later. Okay, so the only control that is left is the rotation, and to do the rotation controls here, we can use a custom rotator. Okay, so this will rotate the UVs, and we can leave the rotation center, but we will use the rotation angle. And here we can add a scalar parameter. But just a note here, the rotation in Unreal for the UVs works from 0 to 1. So it's not 0 from 3 to 360, but it's 0 to 1. So if you want to get, for example, 90 degrees, you need to use 0.25. 45 degrees, 0.125. So that's the rule here. 180, 0.5. Okay, so here tiling, offset, rotation. So these are the controls for tiling, offset, rotation, and we can give them another color, and we will plug the result of all of these into the UVs of our maps. Okay, and here. Okay, congratulations, and now we have our third layer setup. Okay, so let's hit apply and let's test what we created. So here we have metallic controls, normal, etc. And as you can see, there is a group which is called global scalar parameter values. So I want them to be grouped under tiling, offset, rotation, or UV controls. So let's add them to UV controls group. So you can choose the order, but for me here it's not that important. Okay, and here you will see UV controls in here. So we can move the texture on the U axis vertically, on the V axis. We can choose the tiling of our texture, how much it's tiling, and we can rotate our texture from 0 to 1. You can see that 0.25 is rotating 90 degrees. Okay, 0 is 0 and 360 is 1. Okay, so you can limit the sliders, for example, if you want them to be between specific values, like this rotation, so it will not go over these values. So you can put the mean, the default mean and max here, so it will not exceed this this value. So if I go now and try to push the rotation over 1, I can't. So the maximum is 1. So that's a way to limit these slides. So now we finished the third layer of complexity, and we can move to the last one, which is how to add switch parameters. So what if I want to switch between all of these and a simple value? So what if I want, instead of using a texture map, I want to use a color, just a color, not a texture. What if I want, instead of the roughness controls, to use what if I don't want to use this map, but I want to use a value? For example, if I want to create a mirror, I don't need a map, I want just to need a value. So I need something to switch between these. And this could be done by the switch parameter. Static switch parameter. And here, let's say, let's name it is diffuse, for example. So do we want to use diffuse or do we want to use colors? And the default value is false here. So default value is false. So it will be defaulted to these. Okay, so, and the true value, for example, is a constant 3 vector and convert to parameter. And this one, we'll name it diffuse color. Okay, and we will do a white color and we will group it under the diffuse controls. Okay, so let's test this one only. So now if I go to my master material, so by default it will use the textures, but if I now go to the global switch parameter, so I can add this to the diffuse controls group also. So it will appear in the proper place. So diffuse controls, apply, and now it's a part of the diffuse control. So you can choose between using all of these or a single color. So I will check it and check this one, and it will automatically replace the color, the textures by a simple color. And here I can change the color and there is no texture diffuse information. So there is only a color information here. Okay, so I can uncheck it from here and this will bring back the other attributes. So this is very useful, especially when we will create, as I said, objects like mirror, etc. So here, let's create another switch parameter, static switch parameter. And this one is, let's name it metallic value. So do we want to use metallic value? And here let's rename it, for example, diffuse. Instead of is diffuse, let's name it to diffuse color. So do we want to use a diffuse color or a map? So that's more explanatory, and we can expand these. And in the false, so by default it will be defaulted to false, and we will bring this to metallic here. And in the true value now, I will input a scalar parameter. So, and this scalar parameter is metallic value. Okay, and by default I will leave it at 0, and I will add it to the metallic controls and also this one. Okay, so I will do the same here. Static switch parameter, and for this one is roughness value. Okay, and the same, I will input this to false, so it will by default use these values, and we can just replace these by a scalar parameter and roughness value. So I will show you in a second what this can do. So it will be 1 by default, for example, and this will be in here. So we will not add the static switch parameter to the normal because the normal has only one setting. So we can just, if we don't want normal, we can just turn it off by putting a 0 value in the normal input. Okay, so this is the roughness value, and I will put it in the roughness controls like the others, and also here in the roughness, in the roughness controls here. Apply. Okay.